stave. In this video, I'm going to rough out the shape of the bow, so it's going to start looking a lot more like a recurve bow, and I'm going to do a little floor tillering. After that, we need to put the recurves in the limbs and do a final tiller, and those are going to require a little bit more detail and quite a bit more time, so I'll probably do them in a different video. But to get started in this video, we laid out some lines, some center lines in the last video, and we need to make sure that those are still in the center and that they're straight still. This bow has been drying in my basement for 6 months with the dehumidifier on, so it's been shrinking and it's possible that it's warped a little bit. I really don't have to worry about that too much with this hardwood because I selected this with really straight grains, and when straight grains shrink, they shrink in a straight line. Now, when you're working with something like Osage orange, which I'll show you, this is an Osage orange stave, and when you're working with something like this, Osage orange is a very kind of shrub tree, and so it's really gnarly. It has all kinds of crazy knots, and the grains run all kinds of different ways. So when you're working with something like this, you may have to worry about it shrinking different directions and changing and warping on you when it dries. This is actually a pretty cool story. I just received this recently since the last video I posted on this. I was talking to a guy about my hickory bow stave and how I cut down the tree, and I was so far in the process, and he's an older guy, and he had this one started. He had it in his basement, he said, for years, I don't even know how long, and never got it done. Asked me if I wanted to have it, and he went ahead and gave it to me. So these are some of the cool things you end up running into when you get into a hobby like this and you just start talking about it with people. So anyway, this is really cool, but this will be a topic for a different video when I get to it. I'm really excited to work on this one, but for now we're going to work on this hickory one. I got the string laid out, clamped onto either end of the bow stave, and basically there's 3 points that need to line up. It needs to be each limb tip, so we're right directly on top of the line there, and it needs to be the center where the handle's going to be, and we're right directly on top of the line right here also. So we are good here, and I didn't expect this one to warp, but it's definitely good to check. I have the bow pretty much laid out, so I'm going to go over some of the dimensions I have here and how I did it. So the most important thing is this center point right here, and what we're laying out is basically where the pressure from my hand is going to be when I draw the bow, and I want that pressure to be right at the base of my thumb, in that meaty area right there. So we lay it out so that it's 1 1/4 inches up to the arrow shelf, and then 2 3/4 inches down to where it starts to taper into the limbs. So we have a 4-inch handle here, and then 3 inches of taper on the top and 3 inches of taper on the bottom, and those both just taper into 2-inch limbs, and basically that makes a 10-inch riser that doesn't really do any work in bending when we draw the bow back. And then up at the top of the limbs, we have, from the top of the limb down, I'm tapering 14 inches, and I'm tapering it from obviously 2 inches here all the way up to about 3/4 inches down from the actual tip. It's going to be 5/8 of an inch wide where my string groove is going to go. Right now I have this laid out as 5/8 of an inch for the limb thickness. That will obviously change when I tiller it, but this is a good starting point. starting to look more like a bow. But the limbs, you can see that's all the further it really bends when I try to floor tiller. The limbs are really thick still. So, still gotta take a lot off this belly side of the bow. This is starting to get pretty exciting because, you know, the bow's starting to bend. What you watched me just do there was, I want to get the limbs to like almost a consistent thickness here. And so I drew a line on each side of the limbs, and that line's at 1.5 inches. So I just took my hand plane, removed a lot of material quickly, and then switched it up. Once I got close to the lines, switched it up to my draw knife up on edge, and I just kind of used it as a scraper like that. So that went, you know, it's a little bit tedious, but it's not really that hard. Just take your time and work your way down to the line. I also trued up the shape that's drawn on the back of the bow. Just, you know, the bandsaw is not perfect. You're not going to get a perfect shape, so gotta work it down to that line. Same thing, use the draw knife up on edge. But now, as you can see, you know, put a little pressure on that. The bow's starting to bend. Both limbs are bending pretty evenly, so this is the spot where I've read, you know, if you're a beginner, you should pretty much stop as soon as your bows start to bend a couple inches, maybe 3-4 inches. That's where I'm at here, so I'm going to finish up this video. That'll be it for this one. And next video we're gonna do recurves on the limbs. So we're gonna steam them and recurve them, and we'll do a final tiller. I also need to build a tiller rack still, so I might make a video on that too. But thanks for watching, and good luck out there. Be one with the outdoors.